let's forget the missiles and the military strategy for just a second. The first shots in this recent strike in West Asia, well, they weren't just aimed at military targets. They were aimed squarely at the global economy. And the fallout, you guys, is already starting on a completely different kind of battlefield. You know, this one sentence from the Financial Express really just nails it. While everyone's watching the troops and the jets, the real fight is already happening in the world's markets. And this entire thing, it all hangs on one single critical choke point. So how did we get here? Well, it all kicked off on February 28, 2026. A joint US-Israeli strike hit targets inside Iran, and boom. Just like that, the stakes in an already super fragile region just went through the roof. And this is why it matters to everyone, no matter where you live. This isn't just some regional squabble. The shockwaves from that one strike are threatening to crack the very foundations of global economic stability. And it all leads back to this one very vulnerable place. And that place is where this whole story really becomes a lesson in geography. We are talking about the Strait of Hormuz, what is, without a doubt, the world's most critical oil choke point.
I mean, just look at how narrow this passage is. The shipping lanes shrink down to only 33 kilometers wide, and they run entirely through the territorial waters of Iran and Oman. That geography all by itself gives Iran an incredible amount of strategic leverage. And to really get your head around the scale here, just think about this number, 20 million. That's the number of barrels of oil that squeeze through this strait every single day. It's a mind-boggling 1/5 of the entire planet's daily oil supply. So where's all this oil going? An absolutely massive 84% of it is headed straight for Asia. What that means is that the economic engines of places like China, India, Japan, and South Korea are all directly fueled by what happens in this one tiny waterway. And let's be clear, this threat isn't just some abstract idea. Iran has the means to act. You've got over 3,000 ships passing through here every single month. It wouldn't take much, some naval mines, a few fast attack boats, to turn this economic highway into a parking lot. Okay, to make this all feel a bit more real, let's zoom in and see how this crisis impacts a single major global power, a country that finds itself right on the economic front line, India. For a country like India, which has to import over 85% of its crude oil, this isn't some distant headline. No, this is an immediate, direct threat to its entire economic lifeline. And what's kind of scary is how quickly this vulnerability has shot up. Back in late 2025, 40% of India's oil came through the strait. Fast forward just a few months, and that number has jumped to 50%. That's a huge increase in risk in a really short amount of time. The consequences of something happens, it's like a brutal chain reaction. A higher oil bill means India's sending way more money out than it's bringing in. That weakens their currency, the rupee, and it directly drives up the prices that regular people pay for essentials like gas and food. All right, so now let's zoom back out and see how this problem for one nation can quickly become a global shockwave, hitting economies thousands of miles away. You know, here's the crazy thing about global markets. You don't actually need to block the strait for prices to go through the roof. Just the threat of it is enough. Fear gets priced in almost immediately, adding what analysts call a war premium to every barrel of oil. It's basically like an insurance fee against chaos. So check this out. It basically lays out two possible futures. If it's just Iran's own oil production that gets cut, prices might bump up to around $80. But if the strait itself is threatened, that fear factor kicks in hard. A risk premium of $20, maybe even $40 gets slapped on top, pushing prices well over $100. It proves one thing for sure. Markets are way more scared of a blocked choke point than they are of a few lost barrels. And that's the number at risk, $500 billion. That's the value of the energy trade flowing through this little strait every single year. So a disruption doesn't just mess with oil prices. It threatens to kick off some serious inflation for the entire global economy. So with the stakes this incredibly high, what's the endgame here? How are nations even trying to navigate this super tense and volatile situation? Well, what we're seeing now is a scramble for strategic answers. The big importing countries, they aren't just sitting back and waiting to see what happens. Nope, they are actively making moves to try and protect their economies from these potential shockwaves. India's plan is a really great example of this. It's basically a three-pronged strategy. First, go find and lock in other suppliers that are outside the Gulf. Second, get ready to open the taps on your emergency reserves. And third, if things get really bad, be prepared to buy from pretty much anyone. And this is where we run into a really dangerous paradox. Normally, in a crisis, the world looks to countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE because they have spare production capacity. It's like the world's safety net. But if Hormuz gets blocked, all that spare capacity is trapped inside the Gulf, making it totally useless right when we need it the most.
So all of this leaves us with one really big question to think about. In a world as interconnected as ours, where a single conflict in one narrow strait can threaten the energy we all depend on, what's the real cost of being secure?
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to Mirror Now.